The good news is we're all in this together. And when we see we're together, we can work things out. Hello, ladies and gentlemen. This is Energy Week number 283. This is our 283rd Energy Week show. You know, not all of them were our shows. One of them was a half-hour show.
Oh, yeah?
One of our specials. 283 is the number of weekly shows and the number of specials we've had. We've been going
you've
for
added them.
almost 5 years.
Okay.
Anyway.
Time flies when you're having fun.
It sure does. I go to the internet and get news on energy and climate change on a daily basis. I've done that every day, every single day, no days off, since the 2nd of June 2012, when I started my blog up. But I'd been doing it for over a year before that for the New England Coalition on Nuclear Pollution, because the members wanted to have a daily update. So I'd been giving them email, and I still send out the email to those members. But I also, every day, put together usually 3, sometimes 2, sometimes 4 articles that I think are particularly important, and post them at a different blog that Tom visits, so he can know what we're going to be talking about at the Energy Week show.
So basically this show is the best of the blog.
That's what it is. And by the way, I am George Harvey, and over here we have the amazing Tom Fennell. There you go. Tom Fennell, who, do you look like a deer in the headlights there?
So not right now, but usually do, because I'm looking at the monitor.
Tom is not only commenting on the show, but also doing the engineering, which would normally be done.
I got my mouse here. This is what does
That's what it's done with. Oh, yeah. Okay, we're organized here. Anyway, I want to start this show off by saying I met a person who I think might be the most extraordinary person I've ever met.
Boy, that's a lot.
That's a lot. I've met some pretty amazing people. Anyway, this young woman was in Keene last Saturday, and I am hoping that she will be the next president of the United States, or at least the next vice president of the United States. And you mentioned that Bernie Sanders could run for president, and I think that...
Well, he has not admitted that he is, but people keep asking him, and he keeps putting...
Well, I will bet you that if Bernie Sanders decides not to run, she will run. Anyway, she was, at the age of 21, the youngest woman ever to be elected to a statewide legislative body in the United States. And she joined the National Guard and volunteered for the Iraq War. And
what did she do?
She was in a medical unit.
Okay.
And so she's a veteran. And she, when she was, at the time that happened, she was running for, in a campaign to keep her seat in the Hawaiian legislature, and her opponent said, "Wait a minute, you can't represent Hawaii in the your people in the legislature if you're off in Iraq." And she said, "Oh, okay, you're right," and just quit her campaign. If you can imagine a politician doing that. That was the first of 2 times she did something that was really impressive of that nature. Anyway, she went to Iraq, served there. She went on and served elsewhere in the Middle East. I think it might have been in Dubai, I forget. But she got back into politics, was on the city council of Honolulu, and eventually was elected to represent the 2nd Congressional District in Hawaii in Washington, D.C. And she became the vice chairman of the Democratic National Committee and resigned from that position in order to endorse Bernie Sanders.
Interesting.
So, which is kind of like resigning from her campaign in order to be able to do what she was doing in the Middle East. In the meantime, she had gone to officers candidate school, and now she's a major in the National Guard, has a whole lot more military experience than Captain Donald Trump. He was a captain of
Was he a captain?
Yeah, and
of what?
High school cadet.
Oh.
in a military school. Anyway, she is a very beautiful young woman, but she is also a very intelligent, bright human being. And I'm just overwhelmed. You know, she was a great speaker when she talked in Keene. I just found, and I walked up to her and I held up my hand and she shook my hand and I said, "You're my hero." And then I said, "Could you do me a favor?" And she said, "What's that?" And I said, "Save this country."
Take what?
Save this country.
Oh, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, you know, conversation ended very quickly after that. I think one or two of my other irrelevant comments made her think I was a madman, but nevertheless.
Well, moving right along.
Moving right along, we're starting on...
We're going to start with a picture.
Yeah, we're going to start with a picture, but before we do that, I should explain that there's a couple of news items every day, and anybody who wants to actually look them up, you can go to the links at the blog, and the blog is geoharvey.com, geoharvey.com. You can click on the date. We're going to try to keep you apprised of the dates that these things come up, and we're starting on Thursday, September 20th.
Some of these things, particularly this week,
yeah,
are very well worth following up on.
Absolutely, they are.
I'll try and call your attention
yeah.
to the ones I found compelling, but some of them are great.
One of them I found almost overwhelmingly compelling, and it has nothing to do with Tulsi Gabbard, but that's okay. So we're starting on the 20th of September. We have a picture. There it is.
And I'll bring the picture.
And this is from a publication called The Independent. And what do you got?
The title says, "The flood frequency of the world's largest river has increased 5-fold." And that's a picture of a river that
You got to put it up, Tom.
Flood.
There you go.
Come on, come on.
There you go.
Oh, this thing's not working right again.
Uh-oh.
Well, it's up there.
It's up there.
I just have to click it a couple more times.
Okay. As long as you know what you're doing, which is more than I do. Flooding on the Amazon.
That is the Amazon. Okay?
That is the Amazon. That's right. Flooding on the Amazon River has increased 5-fold over the last 2 or 3 decades, a new study has found. Analysis of more than 100 years of river level records from the Amazon showed that both floods and droughts were more frequent. Wow.
Well, the older records show that floods occurred roughly every 20 years.
Yep.
Currently, extreme floods occur on an average of every 4 years.
This is not good, but it is what the people in China who lied and told us that climate change was happening.
It's a hoax.
It hoaxed us into believing. Well, it turns out they're hoaxing us into believing something that is true.
Well, I just said currently floods occur on average every 4 years.
Yeah.
It gets worse.
Oh, okay.
With a few minor exceptions, there have been extreme floods in the Amazon basin every year from 2009 to 2015.
Wow.
So this is from once every 20 years.
To annually.
To annually.
Yeah. Well, here's the deal, you know, regardless of whether you believe in climate change or not, run to high ground. Okay, should we go on, Tom?
Yeah, we can. We got another picture coming up, I think.
Not yet. This is our next item is from Reuters, and I think the picture you can put the picture up because it's good for both this article and the next one. That's a floating floating liquefied natural gas facility.
Well, let me explain what that is. It looks like a ship.
Yeah.
Because it is a ship.
Yeah.
And what they've done is they've built this factory that would normally be on shore that would convert the gas into a liquid.
Yep.
They put it all on a ship.
Yeah.
They bring the ship out to where there is gas coming up from under the sea. You know, they'll have drilling rigs and stuff. And instead of pumping the gas to the shore, they pump it to this ship where it is converted into a liquid. And then they put it on a tanker and it gets the heck out of there.
Yeah.
This ship will be on its location more or less permanently.
Yeah. Now my question is, how are they lighting all those light bulbs? And are they LEDs? Do you think maybe? I'll bet they are.
Well, if they're building these things lately, they are. Yeah. But
They're probably powering that with natural gas-based generators. Anyway, you read the...
buoyant gas industry
Yes.
may be blindsided by renewables.
The global gas industry, boosted by new projects to feed booming times ahead, claims to be in the best shape it's been for 5 years. Not everybody is buying into the industry's confidence, however. Analysts warn it is getting ahead of itself, pointing to renewable energy as a threat. And this is from
Well,
Reuters.
it's more than a threat, really. It's reality.
Yeah.
Now, I got a little takeaway quick here. The fast rise of cheap renewables, backed up by improving battery technology, which by the way is going to get better, okay, will increasingly take market share away from the gas industry.
Yes.
Liquid natural gas producers must lower costs to compete. And
Yes.
can they lower costs?
Yeah.
We'll find out.
Well, the cost is not going down. Anyway,
no, it's not.
I wrote an article about this called, I forget what the name is. It's something like the question, will it was a question about natural gas and its future. Whether the good news for natural gas may not be so good. I think that's
May
the end
not
of the
be
article.
so good.
It appeared at Clean Technica. And,
No, we're still on the subject, so we might as well
yeah,
cover the next one.
we can use that same picture over.
I'll put it back up again.
This is the one that the picture was for, and this is an article that
Where did
came
you
from-
get that picture? Because it wasn't
It was
in the
with
article.
I think it was with the Clean Technica. You want to click again so that they're seeing one of us and not. There we go.
I wanted to get the picture up.
Yeah. The clicker, the magic twanger is not twanging the way it is. Maybe people at home aren't seeing that.
Maybe the reason I couldn't find it, I was looking in the wrong one.
Maybe. Okay.
Anyhow, we're talking about the same thing.
Yep.
Shell announces methane emissions target for oil and gas of 0.02% by 2025. I don't believe it.
This is a Clean Technica article. Royal Dutch Shell, better known simply as Shell, announced a target to reduce and maintain its methane emissions intensity for all its oil and gas assets below 0.02% by 2025. To achieve the goal, the company will implement a variety of programs, and I honestly think that to achieve that goal, they're going to have as one of those programs a thing that says, "He did it, not me." And
Well, what they're going to do, they're installing infrared cameras to scan for methane emissions. That's one thing. Advanced technology to repair leaks and low emissions controllers. And what it says here, the only way to avoid the worst impacts of climate change is to leave both oil and gas in the ground.
Well, yes, absolutely. I think
Reductions in accidental leaks aren't going to cut it.
Yeah, I think this article may have been by Steve Hanley, and he's a pretty good writer, and you know he's pretty straight shooting when it comes to that kind of thing. The leaks at the gas fields are appallingly bad. Just appallingly bad.
And they're hard to stop. They're
Yeah.
crawling out from
I've seen
between the rocks.
I've seen figures as high as 30% or a little over, and these people are saying they're going to cut it to 0.02%. I'm sorry,
They're not telling us the whole truth.
No, I don't think they are. Anyway, that's what they're saying, and we are
You
up.
know, and these leaks are costing them money.
Yes, I
This
know
is
it.
gas they could sell.
Yes, I know it. We are up to Friday, September 21st.
Already?
Yes. Go to geoharvey.com and click on Friday, September 21st. Anyway, here's another article from Clean Technica.
U.S. solar installation costs declined in 2017. Little progress so far in 2018.
They did decline in 2018, but barely. The 11th edition of Berkeley Labs' Tracking the Sun report, published this week, shows that the installed price of solar continued to fall across the country in 2017, but only saw a small decline in the beginning of 2018, and the reason for that may be because of Donald Trump's tariffs, and we
That's
will
possible.
get to his tariffs more.
We haven't heard the last of them.
We haven't.
We haven't heard much about that at all.
Anyway,
What's going on with Canada? We're about to have war. with the
I have
guys.
no idea. I mean, it was only 2 weeks ago.
300% tariffs.
we came to an agreement only a couple of weeks ago that he was touting. You know, I mean, honestly, I wrote an article about him too, or I wrote an article about, I'll get to that later.
We'll get to that.
Anyway.
Well, we got another picture coming.
We have another picture. This is an interesting one to me.
It is. This is kind of cool. Let me get it. Let me find it here.
Pull that up. This is from Renews. I get a lot of things from Renews.
What's going on there?
And the stuff at Renews.
Now I got it.
Mussels from an offshore wind farm. The stuff at Renews, these are very short articles, okay?
Oh, come on.
What's the matter? What's the
This
matter?
thing isn't doing what I want it to do.
Goodness gracious.
There we go.
There you go. I have a feeling that people at home don't see all the craziness that's going on with monitors. Anyway, what you got for a title?
Let's get back to the mussels here. Mussels from Brussels.
Offshore mussels from Brussels. Mussels were cultivated in an offshore wind farm in the Belgian North Sea as part of a test project of a Belgian consortium that includes DEME Group, other companies, and research institutions. They are researching the potential of offshore wind turbine foundations as a habitat to grow seafood.
Well, this is interesting. Instead of just turbines out there, as you see now, there's going to be other activities going on.
Yeah, and you know, if you think about this, those wind turbines are foundations that are not going to produce millions of dollars of worth of seafood every year each. But each one...
Well, at least for this particular picture is on the foundation of a wind farm.
And each
but they're
one
talking
of them,
about putting more stuff out in there.
Each one of them has the potential of being a place where an aqua farmer could go out and make a harvest on an annual basis and pull in a certain amount of food.
And not just mussels, oysters, seaweed.
Seaweed. People should eat more seaweed.
Well, that's what it says from the articles. The North Sea has the ability to become a true sea farm, which will be a breeding base for not only mussels, but also oysters and seaweeds.
Yes.
This is interesting. The mussels are farmed using rafts on wind farms where shipping is regulated. So the ships aren't there, which opens up this vast area of sea to other uses.
Yes, of course.
Interesting.
Isn't it?
Second order consequence.
Yeah. Okay, we've got an article still on September 21st. Inside Climate News is where this came from.
Okay, I'm going to put you up there again.
You're going to put me up.
Yeah.
I'm up.
Solar energy largely unscathed by Hurricane Florence's wind and rain. This is a good article if you like pictures.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pictures in this article.
Faced with her, and it was hard for me not to put some of them in, but I saw that there was a picture before it and a picture after it.
There's some good pictures there.
Yeah. Faced with Hurricane Florence's powerful winds and record rainfall, North Carolina's solar farms held up with only minimal damage, while other parts of the electricity system failed. The state's nuclear and coal plants had some problems. And you know, Donald Trump is saying...
They're still having trouble over there.
Yeah, they are. Donald Trump is saying we need more coal and nuclear because of security. And he's completely ignoring the fact that in order to get from those plants, which, by the way, can be shut down by weather...
Which has been shut down by weather within the last 2 weeks.
Yeah. To get the electricity from them to the consumer, you've got to go through the transmission system, which is really vulnerable.
Well, that's just what I was about to say. The most vulnerable parts of the system are the power lines and the electrical equipment damaged by falling trees, down power poles, or flooding.
Yep.
And that's what's been happening in the Carolinas.
Absolutely.
There are few reports of damage to solar panels. Most panels and racks are designed to withstand wind pressure up to 140 miles an hour.
Yeah. And this is just a repeat of what happened with Sandy, because Sandy hit New Jersey and they lost like 1% of the solar.
Well, what the article was saying, in many areas, solar arrays were capable of working, but the surrounding grid was offline.
Yeah, there you go. And if you had that solar array with a battery, which is getting really cheap, with a grid that is designed to support it, it could have supported giving electricity to local populations.
Well, the grid model is changing.
Yeah, the grid model is changing.
And it's not by design, it's changing because of realities.
Necessity.
Necessity and reality.
Okay,
Yeah.
We are up to Saturday, September 22nd, and we've got
Yeah,
bad news
another
for somebody.
picture here. That, my friends, is Mar-a-Lago. You've heard of that,
Mar-a-Lago.
huh?
Yeah. And this is from CNN.
Homeowners who live on the coast are sleepwalking toward climate catastrophe.
Are you
and they
telling
mentioned
me?
they've got a picture of Mar-a-Lago because it is in the way.
Do you suppose Donald Trump is sleepwalking toward the catastrophe? I think he is, actually. We use that word again in this show. Sea levels are rising faster than predicted. Relative sea levels in vulnerable places like South Florida are roughly 4 inches higher now than in 1992. Projections by the Army Corps of Engineers and others see rises in Florida of 12 inches by 2030. Now, my recollection
That'd
is
be disastrous for most of South Florida.
only last week we were talking about sea level rises of 18 inches in Miami, Miami basically closing the city down.
Or
and they're saying-
drastically changing it.
Yeah, but let me point something out here,
Let
Tom.
me get you up here so people can see what you look like.
If we have 12 inches by 2030, which there's some
That's
of these
coming
people
up pretty
are,
quick.
It's only 12 years. That's an inch a year. Now we could get to a third of the way to that 18 inches in 6 years, while Donald Trump, if he were reelected, which I can't imagine could happen, would still be in the White House. And all of a sudden, the value of all his Mar-a-Lago and other seafront property would be plummeting because it would be clear that you cannot buy this property and maintain it.
And you won't be able to get flood insurance.
And you won't be able to get in flood insurance unless he backs out of the Flood Insurance Act of 2004, the Flood Insurance Reform Act, and there ain't no way he's going to do that.
This article came from CNN.
Yeah.
Homeowners who live on the coast are sleepwalking toward climate catastrophe.
Yeah.
And it's a scary article. It's a good article, by the way.
It's
Very
a good article. Yeah.
It's from CNN, and I have found from doing this that articles coming from places like CNN that they tend to be
toward
pretty
truth.
good.
Yes.
They tend to be well written,
Yes.
in-depth,
Yes.
informative.
Yes.
And this one's good. It's got a video in it. It's got a lot of pictures.
Yes.
It really makes you think.
And by the way,
It really makes you
I
think.
should mention this because I know that there's some school children who watch this show.
Yeah.
If I see a spelling mistake in an article, I will very often look for the same information from a different article because I don't want people who are sloppy. Same thing with grammar. There's a lot of things. I want articles. I had a lesson years ago when a friend of mine wrote me an email and said, "Did you read this article that you posted on your blog? It's terrible."
Uh-huh.
And I had in fact read it, and I had in fact looked for a different article that gave the same information. And what I found was articles on that information came from 8 different sources, and they were all identical. So I had no choice except to say, I'm going to put up a terrible article that gives this information, or I'm just not going to give the information. But really, CNN, well-written article, probably correct. Okay, we are still on Saturday, September 22nd.
We got a quick takeaway from this one.
Oh, okay, go ahead.
About 41 million Americans live in areas that have a chance of flooding. That's a lot.
A lot of people are going to be moving to Vermont.
Well, that's what it says here. They need to consider the cost of continuing to live in places vulnerable to flooding.
Such as Cameron Parish, Louisiana, which had the highest percentage vote for Donald Trump of any county in the United States. And they're all going to have to leave. Yes, we sure have.
Well, let's move along.
Okay, we have an article from KTAR.com.
Canceling a Georgia nuclear plant could cost the owners billions. Now, we've talked about this plant several times.
And we will talk about it again. In a letter to the 3 owners of Camp Vogtle, which looks like it's pronounced Vogtle or Vogtla,
Yeah, it's volatile.
The DOE said that if the construction project is canceled, the government is, quote, prepared to move swiftly to fully enforce its rights under terms of the loan guarantee agreements, including repayment provisions, end quote. In other words, if you don't give us the nuclear plant that Donald Trump wants, we may push you into bankruptcy.
Well, this volatile plant's kind of a disaster.
No, it's not.
They're building they've been building 2 reactors for years.
Yep.
They're way behind schedule, way over cost.
Billions
estimates.
of dollars over cost.
Well, here it is. 2 reactors being built at Vogtle are billions of dollars over budget.
Yep.
Lawmakers want a cost cap in the construction of the plant to protect blown budgets from being passed on to consumers.
What's going to happen here for certain is that consumers are going to be stuck with a bill.
Well, that's what they want to do.
Electricity
That
they aren't going to
can't
get.
Yeah.
Or at least they aren't getting yet. And that has happened over and over and over again.
Well, it's the way the utility business has been structured.
Yeah.
But it's changing.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Clean
Well, we
Technica.
got another picture coming up
We
here.
do. We have an item from Clean Technica.
New Jersey makes way for a gigawatt of offshore wind. A gigawatt, that's a good amount.
Yes, it is.
And by the way, that's not New Jersey that you're looking
No,
at.
that's not New Jersey. Although the New Jersey logo is on there, it is
Yeah,
not New Jersey.
I noticed
They're saying this is what we're hoping will come. The New Jersey Board of Public Utilities voted unanimously to move forward with its expansive offshore wind development plans, opening an application window for 1,100 megawatts of offshore wind capacity, the largest single state solicitation of offshore wind to date in the United States. And by the way, it's already been passed.
Good.
Virginia came along and said, we want 2.
Well, the East Coast, the shore off the East Coast is ideal for producing, for this kind of stuff. It's shallow.
Absolutely.
It's good wind.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Although with floating turbines, West Coast too.
West Coast too.
And
yeah.
I got news for you. The way power lines are being built these days, we could be generating wind in the Aleutians and selling it at reasonable rates in Boston.
Well, you've said on this show that we could generate electricity anywhere in the world and deliver it anywhere in the world with technology that we have now.
Yeah, although it would involve some record-breaking long submarine cables.
Well, the state's goal of installing 3,500 megawatts worth of offshore energy by 2030 is becoming a 100% clean energy state by 2050.
Yep.
That's the state's goal. Massachusetts and Rhode Island have made their own offshore wind energy commitments that altogether took the United States offshore wind development pipeline up to at least 5 gigawatts.
Yep.
And it's going to go beyond that.
Oh yeah, absolutely. And California and Hawaii, first Hawaii, have both committed to going 100% renewable for their energy.
And they will.
They're making a lot of progress.
Particularly Hawaii.
Absolutely. Okay, we are up to Sunday, September 23rd.
Let's see what's happening in Portugal.
Yeah, this is from the Portugal News.
Portugal third in renewable energy production.
Portugal got 54.1% of its electricity from renewable sources in 2016. Remember, this is 16, not 17, and not any part of 18. This is information that's a year and a half old, but it's from Eurostat. Portugal is one of only 5 EU countries that got more than half of its electricity from renewable sources. Austria got 72.6%, Sweden got 64.9%, Portugal was 54.1%, Denmark got 53.7%, and Latvia. Who thinks about Latvia and renewable energy?
Where's Latvia?
It's one of the Baltic
countries,
republics
yeah.
that were taken over just prior to the Second World War by the
Russia.
Russians.
Yeah.
51.3% there. Now, I want to point something out, and that is higher percentages of renewable energy are being generated by other countries.
Well, with these particular countries, they've been doing it for years because they've had a lot of hydro.
Yeah.
For years.
Yeah.
Okay. And hydro in this group of countries is almost 40%.
Yeah.
Okay, followed by wind, which is about 30,
Yep.
and then solar, which is about 10,
Yep.
and the other sources like biogas, geothermal, 20.
Yeah.
So
Now I want to
it's
point
happening.
out they didn't mention in this, and I'm not 100% sure why because I didn't do the research to find out. Albania is getting 100% of its electricity from renewable sources. That's from hydro. Norway is getting almost 100%.
Norway's got a lot of hydro, and
Lot of
has had
hydro.
for a long, long time.
Iceland, and I don't know if you want to count Iceland as part of Europe, but
They do. Yeah, it's generally considered to be
they're
part.
getting close to 100%,
And
not just
that's
for
all
electricity.
geothermal.
A lot of it is, but they've got hydro, and they're pushing. Even their fishing fleet is going to electric power.
Didn't we talk about that?
We did indeed,
Yeah.
and of course in Norway they're going to electric power for their airplanes. So
Yeah, they are.
they have really long lines there that you can plug in and you can switch them around as you fly over. I am kidding. Okay, should we go on?
Yeah, we got another picture.
We have
coming
a
up.
picture, and this item comes from Power Magazine.
And we've talked about this one a couple of times.
A
in the
couple
past, too.
times. I get
This is a new wrinkle to what we've talked about.
I get emails regularly from a woman named Cece Riley, who is a union organizer who works in this area, and she organizes both for the generating station and but primarily for coal union members. And I keep up to date on
Well,
this.
there's a coal mine attached to this generating station.
Well, let me read this. The company's negotiating to purchase the largest coal-fired plant in the southwestern U.S. have broken off their pursuit of that goal. This means that the 2,250 megawatt Navajo generating station near Page, Arizona, remains scheduled to be closed by end year of 2019.
Now, this is a big generating station.
It's in terms of its output. It's we could say
2250 megawatts.
yeah, it's almost 4 times the size of Vermont Yankee
Yep.
as it was
Yep.
uprated, and it is 4 times the size as it was originally built.
Yep.
And I want to point out that picture. Just look at that picture. This is a view from Glen Canyon National Recreation Area. Isn't that a pretty view of pollution?
Well, you know, if you look at that whole area, which is the border between New Mexico and Utah,
Yeah,
all along that border is some of the most beautiful country in the world.
yeah.
There's all these wonderful, you can see the buttes in the background there.
And the Navajo are suffering from the emissions from this plant, which is hiring about 800 Navajo and Hopi Indians.
Yeah.
But nevertheless,
And they're running the mine too.
they're running the mine. The mine supplies only that one plant. As
Yep.
far as I know, the only way you can get coal out of that mine is on a railroad that goes only to that plant.
I think you're right.
So I might be wrong.
They're tied together.
They're
No
tied
question
together.
about it.
The plant closes, the mine closes. And there's a lot of jobs. Now the Navajo and the Hopi have been looking into other resources that they can use both for their electricity and for their jobs.
Well, they were hoping they could sell this plant because it's still a viable plant. I mean, it's still got many years left.
The
in
Trump
it.
administration wants to keep it going.
But the companies that were interested in buying it, which is what this article's about, said they were unable to find anyone willing to purchase power at a sufficient price. They
In other
couldn't
words,
buy the power cheap
You
enough.
can get power cheaper from the sun and from the wind and from the water and from geothermal in California and places like this. Why in the world would you pollute the environment, killing people, when you can do it another way, cheaper? There's no
Well, when they
excuse.
built this plant, they built it primarily to move water through a series
Yeah.
of canals that were operated by this company called CAP,
Well,
Central Arizona Project.
I got news for you, Tom. There's other ways to move water,
Well, CAP found that out.
which is one of the reasons why it's hard to sell power from this plant. They haven't got the customer anymore.
Unfortunately for them. And that's
Yeah.
exactly right. That's
Yeah.
exactly right.
Should we go on?
Yeah, we got a good one here. This one's coming from Vox.
Vox indeed.
Putting a dollar value on one of oil's biggest subsidies, military protection.
You know,
don't
you
think
get
about
back
that much.
you get back to this military thing over and over again though. Securing America's Future Energy, a clean energy advocacy group composed of retired military and business leaders, published a paper on the costs to the U.S. military of defending oil supplies. They said it would cost at least $81 billion per year. And I want to point out something about
Well, they're
this.
avoiding telling us about a lot of the costs.
Yeah. This is not just protecting ships at sea and pipelines and oil rigs on the ocean and so forth. This is a matter of also protecting that convoy that's going from the
Persian Gulf.
Well, or wherever,
Yeah.
across the land to that outpost of American soldiers in Afghanistan or wherever it happens to be.
Yep.
And that's expensive. So this is the military, our military leaders have been going to the Congress year after year after year and saying, we need renewable energy, we need to stop climate change because it's a disaster for the military. And year after year after year, they've had people in Washington, D.C. who have said, I didn't know that. Or worse yet, you're wrong.
Well, this is a very long and detailed article.
Yeah, it's a good
It's actually
article.
kind of boring, but there's a lot of meat in it.
Yeah. Well, some people would say that it's boring.
Did I read what this was going to say?
I don't know.
Putting a dollar value on one of oil's biggest subsidies, yeah, I did. Military protection.
Yep.
Now it's your turn.
I've already, well, I'll read it again. Securing America's future energy, a clean energy advocate.
Yeah, you read it.
I did. It's $81 billion a year. I read that.
Well, this $81 billion a year estimate represents 16% of the Department of Defense's annual budget. So this is significant.
But it doesn't represent the cost of the war in Iraq.
No, it
and
doesn't.
you could arguably say that that war was fought in order to get control of something that Bush administration never controlled, which was the oil in Iraq.
Exactly.
And you know, I have to tell you, I've studied military stuff as a kind of a hobby my whole life, and I can't claim to be quite the caliber of Cadet Captain Trump because I never achieved that rank. But nevertheless, I really blame the Bush administration for the trouble that has happened in Iraq, because what they did was they bombed the blazes out of their road infrastructure, their water infrastructure,
They
their
destroyed it.
electricity infrastructure, and then when they took over the country, they didn't replace it. And what did they expect those people to do who had no electricity, no water, no jobs, no way to get around, but resent them? Because
No,
they had made...
They love us.
Yeah. That's why
We're the
ISIS
good guys.
grew up. Okay, should we go on?
I think we should, yeah. This is an interesting article, too. We got a picture coming.
We have a picture, and that picture is not the picture that I would have liked to put in most, but the one that I would have liked to put in most kind of misrepresented things a little bit.
Well, this also is a very interesting article.
It
with
is.
a lot of pictures in it.
Yes,
And that particular picture is a greenhouse in the desert.
Right, and this is, I should say, from BBC, and we are up to September 24th.
That's Monday.
That is a Monday.
Jordan's plan to turn the desert green.
According to the Food and Agricultural Organization, food production needs to be increased by 50% by 2050. Food production accounts for about 70% of our fresh water consumption and emits 25% of greenhouse gases. While arable land is being lost to climate change, Jordan is farming the desert. And the reason why I thought that picture, I would have liked to go to a different picture.
There's a bunch of pictures in
There were a
there.
bunch, but this is the one that I chose, I liked the best, is because they were not just growing tomatoes in a greenhouse. They had vegetables planted outside in the desert.
Which they're feeding from the greenhouse.
Well, they are,
The
but
water
they're...
that's left over from the greenhouse goes outside.
Yeah, and the water from the greenhouse, where is that coming from?
Well, it's coming from the Red Sea.
Exactly. They're using solar power to desalinate water and grow the vegetables in a desert.
You took the words right out of my mouth. This is what I was going to
This
say.
is
I'll say
really,
it.
really interesting.
The name of this company, by the way, is the Sahara Forest.
Yes.
The Sahara Forest Project's concept is elegant in its simplicity. Solar energy desalinates seawater, which is trucked 10 miles from the Red Sea.
Yeah.
The desalinated water grows crops in cooled greenhouses.
Yes.
And then the surplus water goes out to crops that are out in the ocean, out
Yeah.
in the atmosphere.
Yeah.
And it gets hot there.
Yes. And the only thing that I don't see here that I would have done if I had designed it, they've done a far better job, I'm sure, than I would have. But I would have had fish.
Yeah.
I would have had fish.
Yep.
But nevertheless.
Well, I did a little research on this. This is a big complex.
Yeah.
They're doing a lot of things there. This is only a small part of what they're doing there.
Yeah.
And it's very interesting because they're doing pretty appropriate stuff. And Jordan is desert. The country of Jordan is almost all desert.
Almost all.
And they have to import all their food.
Yeah.
So if they can develop an agriculture industry, they're way ahead of
since I was a grade schooler, I've looked at Jordan and said, how do they get their food?
Yeah, well, they don't.
Yeah.
They import it all.
Our next item is from Renews.
Yeah, this is interesting.
It
GE unveils a 5.3 megawatt onshore Titan.
Turbine manufacturer GE has taken the wraps off a new 5 megawatt plus onshore wind turbine featuring a novel two-piece blade design. The 5.3-158 is part of the Cypress platform. That is not Cyprus, the island. It's the name of a
tree.
Of a program that GE
It's their name, yeah.
Yeah. To be unveiled at Wind Energy Hamburg 2018 this week. It's already been unveiled. It offers a 50% power increase from GE's 3 megawatt turbine.
Well, I looked at this thing and I said, 5 megawatts? Vestas is making them almost 10, which
But those are offshore.
Later. But that's what I realized. This is onshore.
This is onshore.
That's offshore, and it's a different animal.
That's right.
And I'll give you a quick runaround about the two-piece carbon blade, because it's going to unlock acreage for the turbine in previously inaccessible locations, because it's smaller and they can truck it.
Aha.
The method will allow for longer blades to be manufactured and will improve transport logistics by enabling blade assembly on site and reducing the cost for permitting equipment and road work required for transporting the longer blades.
Good.
So they did their homework on this one.
Yep. Okay, our next item is from Clean Technica, amazingly enough.
Aha. Volkswagen plans 16 new electric car assembly plants, one in North America.
Why only one?
Well, they may have more than one.
They may have more than one, but you know what?
And it may not be in the U.S.
If Donald Trump were a little bit more reasonable, we might have more than one.
You got a point there.
Volkswagen plans to make as many as 10 million electric cars in coming years. As part of that plan, the company expects to have plans to have 16 electric car assembly plants in operation by 2022. That's only 4 years off. Part of its $4 billion EV investment strategy.
Well, they've already begun converting its factory in Zwickau, which is near Wolfsburg, to build electric cars exclusively.
Yeah.
The company is also planning 2 new factories in China and at least 1 electric car factory in North America.
Which might just
Could
be
be
in
Mexico, could
Honduras.
be Canada, could be even Honduras.
Yeah.
The company already has a factory in Chattanooga.
Yep.
And this is interesting to me because it showed a picture of the Buzz,
Yes.
one of their new production or proposed production cars. It's an electric reinterpretation of the iconic Volkswagen microbus
Yes.
that achieved cult-like status in the 60s.
Yes.
And it may be part of VW's plans for the U.S. market.
There you
I'd
go.
love to see that. That was a
Yeah.
great vehicle. I had about 10 of them.
Okay, we're up to Tuesday, September 25th.
We've got another picture
and
here.
we've got
this,
an
this
item.
is not a good picture.
We've got it's a beautiful landscape, but this is from NBC News.
Well, that is Alaska's North Slope.
Yeah.
And the North Slope is the top fifth of Alaska, and it's very cold. And this is probably one of 4 days of the year that's not covered by snow.
One of 4 days.
This pipeline is about 700 miles long, and there's a lot of oil up in this North Slope.
Yes, and,
And
when it
they
leaks.
can't get ships up there because it's
Yeah.
frozen most
Well,
of
they'll
the
be able to do that soon.
time. Yeah, you're right.
What's the title?
So this is Tuesday, November.
Yeah.
This is global warming harms national parks more than the rest of the U.S.
This is an interesting study. I read that and I said to myself, what in the world are they imagining? According to a climate study published by researchers at the University of California, Berkeley, and the University of Wisconsin, areas that are chock full of national parks, like places like Alaska and the American Southwest, have already seen dramatic temperature hikes. Excuse me.
This is strange.
Well, what they're saying is some places get climate change faster than others.
Yeah.
Some times of year, some times of day. I don't go into that, but the national parks tend to be kind of aggregated closely together, primarily because there was lots of federal land available, lots of pretty places.
The pretty places is the key.
And they didn't have the ability to make a lot of national parks east of the Mississippi River because everything was populated.
Yeah, that's a good point.
So they've got these parks in places where climate change is changing things very fast, like the Alaskan North Slope and
Well, a lot of
the
them are kind
desert
of
Southwest.
deserts.
You know, a lot of it is desert, and the deserts are changing. And so all of, as I read the article, I said, yeah, that's actually possible. So there you go. We should
Let's
probably,
take another quick look at that North Slope.
yeah, we should
Right.
probably move
You know,
on.
they complain about about wind turbines.
Yeah.
I think that's ugly.
Well, I think there's that was the item on that Navajo station looking from a national recreation site. People in Vermont are complaining because wind turbines will
Yeah.
destroy the beauty of our state. I got news for you. A lot of states are beautiful. We aren't the only people in the world. Come on, act grown up.
I guess the next one coming up is a plan to put forward to dodge U.S. sanctions.
Yeah, and I wrote an
You gotta have
article
something
about
to say
this.
about this,
I
yeah.
wrote an article about this that went up at Clean Technica, and this really bothered me. The remaining members of the Iran nuclear deal say they will set up a new payment system to maintain business with Iran and bypass U.S. sanctions. The
So
system,
this is everybody but the U.S.
yeah, the system would facilitate oil companies and businesses to continue trading without relying on the U.S.-led global market and dollar. Donald Trump, if this happens, you've lost the trade war. Lost. That makes you a loser, Mr. President.
I think you're right.
Well, I wrote an article about this at Clean Technica, in which the word catastrophe showed up in the title. It's easy to find. And
this one came from the BBC.
this came from the
And
BBC.
The BBC usually writes some pretty good articles.
Yeah, and the article that I wrote, I concluded with questions. Is this, speaking about Donald Trump, is he first a dolt? Or is another possibility?
He's in his own world.
Is he
It's as
insane?
it's simple as that.
Or
He's in his own
a
world.
third possibility is he a traitor in his own war? Because I don't know what the other possibilities are.
Well,
I'm sorry to
quick
get so
background
political.
here. The Joint Comprehensive Plan of Action, as the nuclear deal is officially known, was negotiated during the U.S. presidency of Barack Obama.
Yes.
Okay?
Everything that
And
Obama
everything
did.
Obama did, Trump wants to eliminate.
Yeah.
So it saw Iran limit its nuclear activities in exchange for sanctions relief.
Yes.
Earlier this year, President Trump pulled the U.S. from the deal and reimposed the sanctions. Exactly how the system would work is still being determined.
Yep.
But these other guys have turned around and they're bypassing it completely.
Well, he declared a trade war on China, and then he put up tariffs against practically every country on earth in one way or another.
One fell swoop.
And then he
Or is that
said,
swell food?
by the way, I'm not going to honor this thing in Iran. And, he just went on and on and on. In a trade war, you know what is a good example of a trade war? is a trade war that the world had against South Africa, which ended apartheid. It actually
And it worked. Yeah.
It took years,
But it
but it worked. Here, the way that you deal with a trade war, just like any other war, you've got to deal with wars in a way that makes strategic sense. You isolate that country. You make it really hard for that country to deal with anybody. So what did Trump do? He isolated the United States.
Well, the dollar has been the currency of choice for international settlements.
And
If that stops, we're dead.
well, we're not dead,
but it's going to affect our economy badly.
It's going to affect our economy badly. It's going to put us into a situation where whatever they decide on, which could be the euro, or it even could be horrors, the yuan.
Yeah.
I mean, we've got a situation here where we are going to lose this war.
Can you say inflation?
Well, we've already had inflation because
We're going to have more. If this continues, we're going to have a lot.
the price of goods in the market is going up because of tariffs. The price of the value of our goods is going down because of tariffs elsewhere. Our American farmers can't sell soybeans to China anymore. And in the meantime,
China was buying a lot of soybeans.
Yeah, China is shipping its products elsewhere. It's selling solar panels all over the world, which means that other countries that used to be dependent on the United States are now becoming dependent on China. And that, ladies and gentlemen, includes the European Union. So, you know, this is like declaring a war and going into full scale, not retreat, rout. It's like you declare war and
It's a
yell
no-win
panic.
situation.
You cannot win this way, and Donald Trump is not smart enough or not rational enough to be able to figure that out.
Yeah.
Okay, we've got an item here from Business Green, and I'm sorry that I'm spouting politically, but you know.
Green companies outperform their peers.
By golly, let's have some good business. Those companies that use renewable electricity outperform their rivals financially, according to a report released by RE100, the climate group's initiative to encourage firms to commit to 100% renewable power. The report compared 152 RE100 companies with rivals, and by the way, we just had 7 more sign into that group. 7 more big companies.
Interesting group. We've talked about them a little bit here on the show.
Yes?
They're an international group, nonprofit, with offices in London, New Delhi, okay,
Yes.
important, and New York.
Yes.
And its mission is accelerating climate action with a goal of a world under 2 degrees centigrade of global warming and greater prosperity for all, without delay.
Honestly, I don't see how you can get one without the other,
Yeah.
you know? Anyway,
Now we're on the last day of the week here.
Wednesday,
and we're coming
September
closer to home.
26th, and we've got a very interesting picture of a
this is
very
interesting.
interesting article in Gazette.net.
Holyoke solar plant gets battery storage. And there's a picture of the battery. And by the way, there's a lot of pictures in the article.
Yeah, there
There's
are.
6 of those trailers there holding
Yeah,
batteries.
this looks like it's something that could go in somebody's backyard. That array
pretty big.
is huge. It's the biggest solar array in Massachusetts, and you're seeing just a very tiny part of it. But yeah, there's 6 of those trailers. One of the first states to enact an energy storage target, Massachusetts received its largest utility-scale energy storage system when Angie and Holyoke Gas and Electric launched a 3-megawatt, 6-megawatt-hour system connected to a solar farm at the site of the closed Mount Tom Power Station.
Well, if you take I-91 south, you drive right by this Mount Tom Power Station.
Although you might not recognize it as such anymore. I don't know, have they started
I
tearing
haven't
it
been
down?
by there in a while, but I recall over the years seeing all the coal cars, railroad coal
And
cars.
the stack.
And
You
a big
could-
stack.
Yeah, it was.
And I know they closed it about 10 years ago.
Yeah. Okay. That, by the way, is a thing. Nancy Ray Mallory asked me to write a short article about that for Green Energy Times, and I had written an article about the Mount Tom solar array solar array at the Mount Tom station about 2 or 3 years ago, and we talked about it
Can
on
you
the
see
show.
it from the highway?
I don't know. You know, Tom, in the last 3 years, I don't think I've driven 50 miles.
Yeah.
So I just don't know. Should we go on?
Well, yeah, let's see if there's anything I wanted to say. Well, not really.
Okay.
So let's move on.
Our next item is from the South China Morning Post. I've put up the next picture, but it's not part of this article. It's part of the following one.
Well, we'll show the picture next. For
Yeah.
The next one then. China steps up clean energy push with revised renewable target of 35% by 2030.
China
That's been
is-
revised downward.
Huh? That's revised up.
Well, it's shorter time, downward time element.
Yes. China is aiming for renewables to account for at least 35% of electric consumption by 2030, according to a revised draft seen by Bloomberg. Previously, the goal was for
Okay.
non-fossil fuels to make up 20%
Okay,
of the
so you're
energy
right,
use
yeah.
by 2030, which means that they have increased the amount that they will get by 75%.
Yeah.
And I don't think that earlier one was one that had been announced under President Obama, and I mean while he was in office.
Well, there's
And-
something going on in China that people in China government aren't happy with.
Yeah.
Okay, their plan aims to ease reliance on fossil fuels, but there are concerns that coal-powered power stations are still being built.
Yes.
Okay, the government says don't build them, they're building them anyhow.
That's right.
Or they're building add-ons to existing plants.
Yes.
And China doesn't really know what to do with this, you know.
Well,
They're
they've got
finding out about it from aerial photographs.
They've got a command economy that is not really a command
It's not
economy.
working.
It
People
reminds
aren't
me.
listening to
It
them.
reminds me a little bit of the downfall of the Soviet Union, and at one point they invited non-state television stations to a conference in Moscow. They thought that about 600. This was under the as Glasnost was starting under Gorbachev. They thought that there were about 600 such stations in the Soviet Union, which were typically a guy with a VCR who had wired all the people in his apartment building, getting videotapes from Helsinki of Bonanza in English, you know, and they had 600 stations show up,
No
some of
kidding.
whom owned TV masts. Well, they had leased TV masts from. I mean, these stations were leasing masts from the Russian government, and they didn't know what was
Didn't even
happening.
know it.
Well, in China, they're building coal plants, and they're building coal plants elsewhere in the world. And the Chinese government is saying, we've got to do better.
Well, from the article, China has about half of the world's coal power capacity.
Yeah,
Okay, and the country's coal policies have an outside effect on global climate.
right. Now, we've got about
We
a
got a
minute
picture
and a
coming
half
up here.
left, and we've got a picture
Yeah, we
coming
do.
up which is
Well, I'll get the picture up.
set to go. And what do we got for a title?
Well, this goes along with what we were talking about GE before.
That's right.
This MHI Vestas enters 10 megawatt territory.
MHI Vestas kicked off a series of sales of its much anticipated 10 megawatt wind turbine commercial
And
installation.
that's it,
Yeah.
the picture.
Yeah, that's the turbine. And you know that nacelle, which is up there, which looks like it's about 6 feet long and 2 feet high, is
It's
actually
large.
big enough to put a house in. Commercial installations are to start in 2021. The Danish manufacturer officially broke the double-digit barrier with a V164 10 megawatt machine through a series of relatively small upgrades to its technology. Amazing.
They say it can run at full power at a site with wind speeds of 20 miles an hour for
Right.
25 years.
Yes. Well, Tom, it's
I think we finished.
time for us to say goodbye to everybody. Have
Let's get us both up here,
perfectly lovely week, everybody, and we will wave our goodbyes and hope that you come
Adios.
back again.